Hello, my name is Jade Lee and I'm a tax director at BDO, and I'm joined here today with Colin Johnston, who is the managing director of the Galgorm Collection. Colin, thank you very much for giving me your time today. So, we're here to talk about the budget and the impact it's going to have on business, and I suppose we're talking to an awful lot of clients and businesses in the last couple of hours about some of the changes that were announced yesterday. Were you thinking ahead before the budget statement yesterday of some of the rumours that were going around in the media, or were you concerned of some of the impacts that they might have had?
I think from a business point of view, business always likes certainty. So it's good that we now know what we need to deal with. Parts of it are negative. It could have been, but from our point of view, it could have been worse. But business is going to need to work out how each individual business will just need to, face the employer's national insurance increase is the major part of it. It's the major part of the fund or the tax increase, but it's also the major part of what the cost base is going to be for us as a business. I think it's a bit unfair to say that it's not going to have an impact on the day-to-day staff member, because the payment of that tax needs to come from somewhere. Some of it's going to come from price increases. Some of it may come from suppressed wages over a period of time. But I suppose from an instant point of view, nobody's going to see the impact of it, which is why it was the lever that was pulled. Yeah,
and Ms. Reeves said today that she did admit that the workers would feel the impact of the new taxes on employers. Do you find that the additional NIC and the additional national minimum wage are going to make a big difference to your plans for the business in the future? Do you feel that it's something that you can absorb comfortably, or do you feel that there will be a knock-on effect on maybe prices?
The employer's national insurance is going to have an impact. Where that impact falls, I think, will be for each individual business to decide where they want to place it. But you can't place it all in the price increases. Invested so heavily in our staff, and our team members are the core part of our business. Our business is built on our staff. So without having those great team members doing a great job and delivering a fantastic service that keeps the customers coming back and coming back. So we need to, we have spent loads of time making sure that not just the remuneration is good for our team members, but the package is good. So with things like private healthcare on the 1st of November. So tomorrow we're launching private GP for any staff member that wants it. So we're going to continue investing in our staff because of the core part of the business. I suppose over time what you might see is a slowdown in some of the remuneration packages. I say price will have to be a lever that's looked at, but it needs to be looked at it in the round. That what can you pass on to the consumer? Northern Ireland does have the lowest disposable income of any of the UK regions, so that does have impact. And when you're thinking about the local market, and different businesses in hospitality and tourism some rely more on international guests and some rely more on local guests. So depending on your business mix is going to make some of your decision making. So it is going to be tough decision making for some businesses. But business is about change, and we knew this budget was going to be challenging. And every individual business will find their own way of dealing with it.
Okay. And was there anything in the budget that particularly surprised you, or did you think, well, actually, it could have been a lot worse?
It was deemed, I think there was a lot of negativity around it, and it was done for a reason, so that no matter what you got, it still felt like a good day. The first Labour budget in 14 years, I think, politically we have a Labour Party that seems to be more traditional Labour than what we've maybe had in the past, and I think business knew that it was going to be at the forefront of that whatever you want to call it, the taxation drive, and I feel that they pulled a lever that on paper they can say, oh well, we're not affecting the day-to-day person on the street, but in reality the day-to-day person on the street pays the tax. So however that translates down, whether it's through price increases, suppressed pay, some benefits either being with not brought forward by a company or some benefits subsiding, ultimately we're all going to feel the impact of that in the future.
The hospitality industry in Northern Ireland has perhaps not benefited from some of the previous reliefs that hotels and that in the UK and Wales would have benefited from. Is there something that you could say to the Stormont executive in light of all now this sort of new costs for all employers, but in particular for yourselves in the hospitality industry? Is there something you could say to the Stormont executive, a message that you would give in terms of like what should their reaction be in terms of being able to support the hospitality industry in Northern Ireland?
I think Northern Ireland's always sat in this very unique position. We, as an island, we're marketed by Tourism Ireland, so we're marketed as a destination, both north and south, by one tourist body. The south have had the benefits of 9% VAT rates, or 13.5% VAT rate at the minute. So while we compete with our neighbours in the south, we're not competing on a level playing field. And then if you compare the rate relief that hospitality and tourism businesses have had in England and Wales over the last number of years, which I think was in the region of 90%, going forward into next year, they're getting a 40% decrease. And all this money came back over the last number of years to Stormont in the Barnett Consequential. So we got the money, but Stormont didn't give any of the rate relief that our neighbours had. So I suppose in Northern Ireland, we were in the worst of all worlds, where our southern neighbours have got a reduced VAT rate, and our neighbours over in England and Wales have got a reduced rate bill, while we're still paying everything. So I suppose the big is give us what if the money is set aside and comes back in the Barnett Consequential for rate relief. I really do feel that's the lever that Stormont could pull. They've got the resource to pull it, and if they've got the money to do it, because it's coming back in the funding model. So just align us with, at the very least, England and Wales and that rate relief. Of course, we'd rather have a VAT the same as the South, but that's a London gift, and I don't feel that's something that's on the horizon.
Okay. And the hospitality and tourism sector in Northern Ireland has changed shape significantly in the last couple of years. I mean, all you have to do is take a trip around Belfast to hear and see so many different tourists and visitors. It's almost as if this is an area that Stormont and NI Tourism should be really promoting, and they are. So something like giving you that extra benefit would just help grow the industry even more, or make it just appeal. Would probably attract more employees, allow businesses to expand. We were talking earlier just about the room numbers in Northern Ireland, and they're comparatively small. Do you see the industry expanding much further, or do you think that it's an industry that should focus on the quality that we have on offer to our tourists coming to Northern Ireland?
I think when you look at currently the hospitality and tourism industry employs somewhere in the region of 73,000 people. So it's the fourth largest private sector employer. 70% of those jobs are outside of Belfast. So it's one of the best sectors to put jobs into the regions, which is a key part of the current economy minister's goal, which is regional spread, so that everybody benefits from the economic success story of Northern Ireland. Look at where Northern Ireland's hospitality and tourism numbers. It's about 5.5% of our GDP in Northern Ireland is made up with hospitality and tourism spend. If you compare that to the south, they're at about 12%. And if you compare it with GB, they're at about 10%. So we don't naturally. I think we're going to even if we catch up with our nearest neighbours, you're going to double the size of the current industry. And if you take that over the next, say, decade, or slightly more than the next decade, that's going to take us to do that. You're not necessarily going to double the size of the workforce, but if the current workforce is about 73,000, say you need another 20, 30,000 people. We need to find those people, train them, and create the space for that growth to happen. And especially from the regional spread point of view, it is slightly tougher to do business in the regions. Some of the costs are different, the cost bases are different. So you must create those reasons of opportunity and windows of opportunity for people to open businesses in the regions and put employment into places that very few other sectors can genuinely put good quality jobs into some of those places. I know regional Northern Ireland very well, but it comes with its own dynamics, and some of that is allow us to create the appetite to open in the regions, support the regional development and the economic spread, and ensure everybody benefits with the success story of Northern Ireland.
Yeah. And I think that's a real fine balancing act from yesterday's budget, is trying to encourage that growth at one sort of level, but at the same time not increase some of the taxes and the costs for employers by hiring that workforce that is needed to sustain that growth by increasing taxes too much or making it too costly. Do you think Ms. Reeves has got a good balance?
I would say without additional supports, and this is true too of outside London. London functions as its own independent state, especially too in the hospitality market. London hotel rates are completely different to the rest of the rest of the UK. So if the UK want the regions to do well, and if Northern Ireland wants the regions to do well outside of Belfast, there has to be something that allows that to happen. So I don't feel we've got if you want to take it as the seesaw is tipped in the wrong direction. There's no, it's about how do we ensure that there's incentives to develop outside of cities. Cost base doesn't change when you move outside the city. You're still paying the same wage bills, you're still paying the same energy costs. All the costs stay the same. It is more costly to do business in the region. So I suppose if you want that regional spread, something has to give, and I suppose it's back to Stormont and London being more aligned about what they're wanting to achieve. But at the flip side of it all, we all know where the public sector is and what needs to be done. So I don't think they've got the balance quite right. I think if anything, they've tipped the scales a wee bit to the negative, and I think Stormont has the potential to maybe to bring it back into more of an equilibrium, potentially with the rates, especially if the money is the decisions have already been made in London. The money is going to come back through the Barnett Consequential, so they have the money to do it. Yep. So all we're asking for is adopt the same rate strategy that England and Wales have adopted.
Okay. And one final question for you. If you were the Chancellor, or if you had a direct line to her, is there anything in particular for that for the hospitality industry, whether in the UK or here in Northern Ireland, that you would like to see her change?
Northern Ireland is a very small place, and we always felt, there's a reason why the South have operated with a VAT rate. The UK is one of only 3 countries in the EU sphere that doesn't have a separate VAT rate for its hospitality and tourism sector. Germany, France, all the big countries have a completely separate VAT rate. So what we've always said is Northern Ireland could be the test ground to see if you align VAT on the island of Ireland, what would that look like and what would happen? What job creation, what significant investment would happen, and maybe use it as a blueprint. And if it worked, and put it in as a short period of time, let's try this out for whatever period of time. And if it works, then potentially look at other regions in the UK. But I definitely think we're the only part of the UK that has a land border with another part of the EU that has a separate VAT rate, but we're quoting for the same, we're quoting for parts of business with 3 or 4 hotels from Southern Ireland, and we're not playing on a equal playing field. So I suppose equal in the playing field, but doing it in a matter that let's take stock of it in 2, 3, 5 years time, whatever period of time we decide to say, look, this is what we did, and look at the results from it. And I don't think it would be a huge cost to the UK public purse to allow them to see, well, what could happen here if we change the VAT rate and align the VAT rate with the South. So that would be I do think that would be the game changing. Look, there's been models done on it where within a couple of years the Treasury's to the positive. So models are models until you drive a test case, and I just think Northern Ireland, being a very small part of the UK, could potentially be a good test case for that.
Colin, thank you very much for your time today.
No, thank you.